I'm Dave Jones with Dave Jones Realty, and everywhere you look to buy a house in Connecticut, it's turning into a bidding war. In Fairfield and Hartford counties, that's mostly true. Buyers are paying well over asking price, but that's not the whole state of Connecticut. There is one part of Connecticut where buyers are still getting homes at asking price, and in some towns, even slightly below asking price. So today I'm going to walk you through real numbers straight from the SmartMLS. So before you lock into a town, just because it's the one you keep seeing in your search, let's actually look at what's happening under the hood, county by county. First, we'll start with the part of the state you've probably already heard about, Fairfield County. It's the county closest to the coast and the closest to New York City. It has towns like Westport, Greenwich, New Canaan. It is without question one of the most competitive housing markets in the entire state. And right now, sellers in Fairfield County are getting on average 105.2% of asking price. Let that sink in for a second. That means if a house is listed at $500,000, buyers are closing at over $525,000 on average across the whole county. Homes are only sitting on the market for a month before they go under contract. It's a seller's market in every sense of the word, and it's exactly the reason so many buyers with a $400,000 to $600,000 budget get priced out of Fairfield County before they even get started. Sometimes without even realizing it until they've already lost an offer or two or three. So now let's get over to Hartford County. This one actually surprises people because Hartford doesn't have the reputation that Fairfield County does. But if you look, Hartford County is one of the hottest housing markets in the entire country. Nobody's making viral videos about how competitive it is, but the numbers tell a different story. Hartford County sellers are getting almost 107% of list price right now. That's even hotter than Fairfield County. Homes on average sell in 18 days. 18 days. That's not even 3 weeks. If you're a buyer walking into Hartford County thinking you have time to think it over, look at a few more houses, maybe sleep on it, you're never going to get to sleep in it. The market is moving fast. Buyers are paying a real premium just to compete. So here is the rehook. I want you to really sit with this one for a second. Two of Connecticut's biggest, most talked about counties are both seeing buyers pay well over asking price, with homes barely staying on the market a month. If that's the picture you had in your head of Connecticut this whole time, you're not wrong. The market absolutely exists in those counties. It's real. It's documented. It's happening right now. But it's not the only Connecticut that exists. And what I'm about to show you is the difference maker. Everybody's actually trying to stay inside their budget with this move instead of stretching it, or worse, giving up on Connecticut entirely. What I'm about to show you is the difference maker for anybody trying to actually stay inside a budget on this move instead of stretching it, or even worse, giving up on Connecticut entirely and saying, oh, we'll go to Pennsylvania instead. Because of what one part of the state looks like, don't let it change the whole perception of the state. Real quick before we get going, if you are moving, buying, or selling in Connecticut, let's find out exactly what fits your budget, your lifestyle. That's exactly the thing that my team does on a daily basis. No pressure, just a real conversation. Click the link down below and book a Zoom meet with us. Shoot me a text, send me an email, and we will figure out exactly where your money will go the furthest here in Connecticut. Picture this for a moment. A buyer is looking, and they've decided on Connecticut, and they've decided on Fairfield County with a $500,000 budget. They've decided on Fairfield because it's the name that kept coming up in all their searches. They put in 3 offers. Over a 2-month span, they get outbid every single time. They watch each house close, and it closed for $30,000 over, 40,000 over, and one even closed at 60,000 over what they bid. They're exhausted. They're discouraged. They're starting to wonder if this move is even the right move at all. And this is not a rare story. This is what happens a lot of times with buyers who never see the rest of the Connecticut map, and it's completely avoidable once you know where else you can look right now. So let's talk about the part of the state where the math is completely different. And it's a part of the state I love. There's great value there. I have a home there. There's so much to do. This is Litchfield County, the northwest corner of Connecticut, with the rolling hills, the lakes, the small towns, and a lot more land per dollar than you'll find anywhere else, especially down by the coast. In Litchfield County, sellers are getting 100% of asking price. Not 105, not 107, 100%. That's more practical. Buyers are not getting into bidding wars in Litchfield County. They're negotiating like real estate is actually supposed to work, where a fair offer gets a fair response instead of getting buried under 6 other offers and you don't even hear back. And it's not just the price. Homes in Litchfield County are sitting on the market for 30 to 45 days on average. Compare that to 18 days in Hartford. Last month was 6 days in Hartford. That's more than double or triple the time. There's also 3.2 months of supply in Litchfield currently versus 1.7 months supply in Hartford. When you have more inventory, you have less urgency. Buyers have more room to breathe, and you have room to actually think about the house before deciding. You also get room to negotiate repairs or a closing date that actually works for your move instead of just hoping your offer gets picked out of a stack. So here's the question I want you to ask yourself. Why is this happening? Why would one part of this tiny little state be seeing double the days on market and nearly double the inventory of a different part of the state that's only half an hour to 45 minutes away? Part of it's simple. It's geography. Litchfield County is further away from the job corridor. That pulls people into Fairfield County. If you have to be in New York a couple days a week, you're probably not going to live in Litchfield County. Same thing with Hartford County. There's more jobs in that area. Part of it is this part of the state has always moved a bit slower. It's also a bit seasonal. It's less driven by daily commute clock. And part of it, honestly, is that not enough buyers even know to look there. All the attention usually goes to the town that everybody's already heard of. That gap between what buyers assume about Connecticut and what actual data says is exactly where your opportunity sits. And this isn't just a Litchfield story either. Across Connecticut as a whole, inventory has been building. There are more homes sitting on the market today than there was just a couple years ago. And homes are taking longer to sell than they did during the peak in the frenzy. The shift has been giving buyers more options and taking some of the panic-driven urgency out of the market overall. But that shift hasn't hit every county the same. Some counties are still moving at the old pace. Litchfield County is one of the places where that extra breathing room shows up the most. Here's a mini payoff for you. I know a lot of people are wondering, is Litchfield County some kind of consolation prize? The place you settle because you can't afford anywhere else? It's not. The median sales price on a single family home in Litchfield County right now is still $423,750. That is smack dab in the middle of the $400,000 to $600,000 range that most buyers are currently working with. You're not just getting less competition, you're getting a price point that actually fits the budget you came with and a whole lot more land and space to go with it than you would get for the same money closer to the coast. Now, I know what you guys are all thinking. Litchfield County sounds so far away. It sounds so rural. It sounds like a place you can visit on a weekend, not the kind of place you can actually build a life and commute from. And I get why that assumption exists, because most of what gets pushed online about Connecticut real estate is centered on the coast and the job corridors closest to it. But rural does not mean you're cut off. Litchfield County still gives you real access to major highways, a manageable drive to surrounding job centers, And if you're someone who's shifted to hybrid or remote work over the last few years, which a lot of buyers have, the commute math looks completely different than it did a decade ago. The question isn't whether Litchfield County can work for you. The question is whether anybody ever showed you the actual numbers and you even considered it in the first place. Let's get very specific because I don't want to just throw a county-wide number at you and call it a day. A county is made up of dozens of towns, and every one of them has its own version of the story. So let's talk about a couple actual towns with actual numbers. First one is Watertown, another awesome town. We have a great office there on Main Street. Pop in and see us. Median sales prices here in town are $378,500, and houses are selling at exactly 100% of asking price. Homes average just 15 days on market, which tells you things are moving. Buyers still want Watertown. They're just not bidding them up in the process. Watertown sits close enough to Waterbury for an easy commute, but it still has a genuine small New England town feel with a walkable center, quiet residential streets, and a strong sense of community. And right now, it's a place where a buyer with a $400,000 budget can make an offer at asking price, win the house, instead of going 20, 30, 40 over and losing. Second town on my list is Torrington. This is the largest town in all of Litchfield County, and it's a great example of what I'm talking about. The median sales price is just $315,000, and homes are closing at just 1% over asking price, which again, for all practical purposes, is just like buying it at asking price. Days on market average 19, so Torrington is giving you more affordability than most anywhere in this part of the state. Real civic infrastructure, a downtown that's been getting reinvested in year after year. You have access to the Litchfield Hills without the price tag that comes with the more well-known Litchfield County towns. If you're relocating on a tighter end of that $400,000 to $600,000 range, Torrington deserves a serious look. The third town is also one of my favorites in the area, and it is New Milford. The median sales price here is $490,000, right in the heart of that budget. Homes closing at just 0.7 over asking, 23 days on market. New Milford has a real town green, a walkable downtown, access to the Housatonic River, the parks, the recreation, all spread throughout the town. And it's one of those places you get space, you get charm, and you're not fighting 5 other buyers for the chance to own it. It's also one of the larger towns in the county, which means more inventory to choose from. At any given time, more variety in what's actually on the market, more flexibility if your search takes a couple months instead of a couple weeks. But you'll notice the pattern all across all 3 of these towns: Watertown, Torrington, New Milford. Different price points, different feels, different distance from the coast, but the same underlying story. Buyers closing at or about asking price, homes moving in a reasonable amount of time, and they're not getting swallowed up in bidding wars. You still get the chance to walk through the door, let people do an inspection, think through some financing options. That pattern is not a coincidence. It's what an entire county behaving differently from the rest of the state actually looks like, town by town, deal by deal. And here's where I want you to lean in, because the next one is the reveal I've been building toward the whole video. And that reveal is Bethlehem, Connecticut. Small town, real charm, and genuinely one of the most underrated pockets in all of Litchfield County. Buyers have never even heard the name before they start looking here. Median sales price right now for a single family home is $557,500, and the percent of list price, it's actually just under 100%, 99.7. Buyers in Bethlehem are closing under asking price, while buyers in Hartford County are paying 7% extra just to compete. Buyers in Bethlehem are closing for less than what the seller originally asked for. That's the kind of leverage that almost nobody buying in Connecticut even knows exists. That's all anybody talks about is the feeding frenzy in Fairfield County and Hartford County, how everything's getting overbid, multiple offers, a day on market. Think about what that actually means in practice, in real dollars, not just percentages on a chart. On a $557,000 home, the gap between paying 99.7% and 106.9%, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars on a single purchase, just because the part of the state you decided to focus on has a different market. That's not a rounding error. That's a down payment on your furniture. That's all your closing costs paid. That's a cushion in your savings account. That's updating the roof or installing a pool. That's the kind of number that your whole first year of home ownership can feel different. So here's the honest version of all this. Connecticut is not a one-size-fits-all housing market. It is 8 separate counties. And honestly, block by block, hundreds of different micro markets. Each one moves at its own pace, its own timeline, its own pool of buyers competing in it. The mistake most buyers make is assuming the whole state moves the same way. That Fairfield is competitive, all of Connecticut is competitive. It does not work that way. If you default to the towns that everybody's already heard of, the ones that show up first on Google search, the ones that are showing up first on Zillow, you're going to be competing with everybody. But if you know where to look and you're working off real data instead of assumptions, there are entire counties where you can still make a fair offer. Take your time, do inspections, and actually negotiate like a buyer instead of begging to be picked. Now, look, I'm not saying Litchfield County is the only answer for every single buyer out there. Some of you need to be close to jobs. You need to be close to the corridor that takes you to the city. Some of you want the coastline. Some of you want walkability or a bigger downtown or a shorter drive to the airport. That is all completely fair, and that's a conversation we can absolutely have. But if your flexibility on location is on the table, getting the most home for your budget matters to you, this is exactly the kind of market data that changes the whole plan. And it's the data most buyers never even see until they're already deep in a bidding war. This is exactly why pulling actual MLS numbers matter more than pulling a best places to live list off the internet. Those lists get built off aesthetics and headlines, not off what's actually happening in the market this month. A town can look perfect in a photo and still put you through 3 months of losing offers. A town nobody's heard of can quietly be the easiest place in the entire state to actually close on a house. The only way to know the difference is to look at the actual sold numbers directly, month by month, town by town, which is exactly what we just did together. And that's exactly why we do these planning calls with our buyers. Because none of this matters if it's not mapped out to your actual budget, your actual commute, your actual life, your actual pets. We've helped buyers from all over the country figure out exactly which Connecticut county and which town inside that county and which street inside that town actually gets what they came here looking for without paying a premium just to compete for it. That call isn't a sales pitch. It's us pulling up the same kind of data I just walked you through, but it's narrowed down specifically for you. This way you're not guessing throughout the whole process. So give us a call, shoot us a text, book time with me direct, and I will walk you through this. No obligation. Do you want to know which single county in Connecticut is quietly the best place for buyers to actually win a negotiation instead of losing one? The one county where buyers are still winning, where homes are still selling at asking price or under, where you've got 3 months of inventory to actually take your time, it's Litchfield County. While Hartford County and Fairfield County buyers are fighting it out over asking price, sometimes 6 to 7% more, Litchfield County buyers are closing deals for what the house is actually worth in towns like Bethlehem for sometimes less. If you're interested in seeing a video where I talk about all the counties as a whole and where might be the best fit for you, click this link right here and I will meet you over there.